Is this the end of winter? Well, first of all, we've got to define when winter is. And for us meteorologists, climatologically speaking, we've still got over a week left. Winter ends at the end of February, and the 1st of March is the 1st of spring. For us, meteorologically, you can measure spring however you want. Many people rely on the astronomical definition, and the equinox this year is the 20th of March. So by either of those definitions, yes, there's still a bit of winter left. But of course, I'm really talking about, are the temperatures set to stay high? And yeah, there's no real sign of any snow or ice warnings in the forecast, certainly for the next several days. Let's take a look at what we are seeing temperature-wise as we go through the next few days. We're seeing those temperatures get widely over double figures through the weekend, and by the time we get to the early part of next week, into the teens. Perhaps if everything comes together, we get some brightness, and the Föhn effect temperatures could even get into the mid-teens in some locations. Unlikely to threaten the winter high at the moment of 17 degrees, but you know, some places may not be far off on Tuesday if everything comes together. But certainly a lot milder than it has been by day. And if we take a look at the minimum temperatures, well, look at these values, a long way from freezing, 7-8 degrees. These are the kind of numbers we've been seeing by day over recent weeks, and these are the nighttime temperatures, and staying pretty mild as we go into next week. Some places may well stay in double figures. So yes, milder air is coming in. Let's take a look at what we've seen so far through this winter. We're talking about the temperatures, and these are the maximum temperatures so far through the winter, which, as I say, as we measure it, it's December, January and February, the 3 calendar months. This is the rolling accumulation as we go through the season with the average winter temperature. This black line, the highest on record, this red line, and the lowest, this blue line. You can see actually we had some variation in December, as you'd expect. Started off mild, turned a bit colder. Most of December was above average, but since the turn of the year, we've been very close to this average line. This is the maximum temperatures, but it's very similar for the mean and the minimum. We've been very close to the average, the 30-year average, since about the second week of January. So the temperature's running pretty close to average. It has been a wet winter, as many of you will know, but not quite that straightforward. It's not been exceptional when you average it over the whole of the country. Now, this is the rainfall, again, accumulating through the winter months, December, January and February. This is the wettest on record up here. This is the average here, and we are running at a bit above average, but not exceptionally so at this stage. There is still over a week to go, but we are in this range. What is that sound? What is that sound? Why is my watch is playing a funky tune? That's interesting. So yes, we can look at the rainfall being a little bit above the average as we've been over recent days, but not exceptionally so, certainly not threatening any records. But in some places, it has been very wet, and it's the regional variation that's been really quite remarkable. We've shown this map a few times, but you know, still a week to go. But this is showing the variation across the country, and it's been very wet down here in the south of England, very wet in eastern Scotland, but western Scotland, which gets a lot of rain, usually has been much, much drier than average, along with parts of northwest England and North Wales, particularly the hilly areas here, whereas we've had that big variation with some pockets. That dark blue colour is 170% or more of the average through the winter season. So some places pushing on close to twice the average, some places well down in the sort of 30 to 50% bracket across parts of Western Scotland. So there's that huge variation, but when you average that as a whole, you are, you know, a little bit wetter than average, but not remarkably so. So there's big, big variations. What has been going on, as we've talked about this quite a bit as well, we've had a south-shifted jet, which is why Spain and Portugal have seen lots of storms. And you can see from the jet stream here, the cirrus clouds, those high clouds kind of indicating where the jet stream is. Things have started to shift further north through this week. So Spain and Portugal now seeing some dry and sunny weather. The weather patterns have just been a bit further north, still into parts of France and still coming into the UK. But we've lost the big blocking area of high pressure across Scandinavia, so the low pressure systems are now moving through. The jet stream here, the pink, has been pushed a bit further north. It's still a bit wavier than normal, and it's still generating low pressure systems, but it's more here, whereas for most of this year it's been much further south, taking the low pressures in on this kind of trajectory. Now it's moved back closer to the average position for this time of year, and it's bringing in low pressure systems our way, and not a lot changes as we go over the next few days, even into the middle part of next week. Actually, by then, quite a supercharged jet potentially out over the middle of the Atlantic. So that's one thing to watch. But certainly over the next several days, the jet stream remains a bit wavy, coming in this more typical position, and so we will see low pressure system after low pressure system coming in and moving in across the UK, which means the winds continue to feed in from the west or the southwest, which is why we are going to be milder than it has been over the next several days. So milder air coming in, bringing with it some moisture. So we aren't going to turn dry, far from it. These weather systems are going to bring the rain in with them too. This chart showing the buildup of rain, the accumulation of rain over the next several days. And if we scoot forward to Tuesday and Wednesday in particular, the rainfall, the rolling rainfall totals, but look at where the rain is falling. It's falling in those areas that haven't seen the rain. We showed the map earlier. Let's put it back on. It's almost a mirror image, if you like, of where the rain hasn't fallen so far through this winter. Western Scotland, Northwest England and North Wales. But over the next few days, that is exactly where the rain is going to fall. We won't see as much in eastern Scotland, in southern England. Could still be some, particularly as a wave runs through on Saturday night, but those rainy areas over the next few days are the areas that have been so far quite dry across winter. So yes, there is more rain to come, and it's shifting into a different location. What about beyond that and into the middle part of next week? Well, generally speaking, the weather likely to still be coming in from the Atlantic, even for the latter part of next week. This is the different flavors of weather that we could be seeing. This paler blue is southwesterly dominated airflow. That's what we've got for the early part of next week. Later next week, the darker blues take over, suggesting more of a westerly. And if you look hard enough, some of them suggesting a bit more of a northwesterly, particularly around Friday next week. We could see a brief northwesterly, but generally this darker blue indicating weather systems will continue to come in. So we'll have blips where we'll see a brief colder spell, but there's no strong signal for any lengthier colder spell to return. Generally, temperatures are going to be around or above average. And I'll just show you that one more way by looking at the temperatures. When we run the ensemble, when we run the models many times, this is a projection. Each one of these green lines is a different ensemble member. So in quite good agreement here that we're going to see temperatures rising, and I can move this dot anywhere around the UK, and it's showing a similar pattern. So yes, milder for the next few days and nights. There is a hint that it dips a little bit as we go towards the back end of next week and the last weekend of February and into March, 28th and the 1st. Anywhere I go around the UK, you get a kind of similar trend. It rises and then it dips, but it doesn't dip cold. It just dips back closer to average. So yes, we're not likely to see any significant wintry weather, certainly not in the short term into the middle part of next week. It's more wet and windy conditions coming in from the Atlantic, but that wet weather is going to be in slightly different areas compared to where it has been.